welcome to episode number 37 of my podcast. I'm Emma and this is where I share everything that I've been knitting and crocheting lately. How are you all doing? I hope you've all had a wonderful summer and that you're all ready for autumn. It's been a while, hasn't it? Just life gets in the way. It was the 6 weeks holidays. I was really busy with work at one point, but things are calming down now. Girls are back at school as of a couple of weeks ago, back into a routine, and I'm hoping to start posting more regularly again now that things are a bit more back to normal. So the upshot of not posting a podcast episode in quite a while is that I have got an awful lot to share with you today. So since we last chatted, the good news is that I have recovered my sock mojo, which is good. I've got a few pairs of socks to share with you today, finished ones that are in progress. I've had to be a bit picky and I've had to discriminate. I don't have time, I don't think, to show you absolutely everything that I've been working on since the last episode. I'll just go through, the highlights and the good bits, so that's fine anyway, isn't it? So I've got 3 finished objects and then I've got 8 projects that are in progress that I want to chat to you about. So yeah, lots and lots. And then I've also had a couple of comments recently on other videos asking me to chat a little bit more about my Patreon, but I'm going to stick that on at the end so that if you're not interested in that, which is absolutely fine, you can just watch the regular podcast part and then switch off. Okay, let me have a little sip of coffee and then we can get started. So all of the finished objects that I have to show you today, all 3 of them happen to be socks, and I'm pretty sure, I'm just putting them on my sock lockers, I'm pretty sure that I've chatted to you about these ones before because these took me quite a while to finish. And I'm talking about my Regia Socks. Now, this is a self-patterning yarn from Regia. Pretty sure I showed you it. And this is how they look. So the story behind these is that I actually bought this yarn as a gift for my auntie who also knits socks. And to cut a long story short, I basically already bought her the same yarn the year before. So we did a bit of a swap and I gave her some of my sock yarn that had been languishing on the shelf that I kind of knew I was never going to use, and she gave me one of the balls back. So the good thing about this is everything is basically done for you. So you cast on and you just work the cuff. I've done a 2x2 ribbing. It's huge. It is absolutely enormous. I didn't even give it that much thought. I just cast on and I just started knitting because to me that was the main draw of the self-patterning yarn. The fact that I didn't have to think, count anything, everything's just all done for you. You just knit, or knit purl, until you get to the patterned part and then you just knit plain. And yeah, it's absolutely enormous. I normally do 15 rounds of ribbing for a cuff. If I'm feeling particularly lazy, I'll do 12. And I think this is something like 25 or something huge like that. If I fold it down, that's probably more in keeping with what, you can see my end. That's probably more in keeping with what I would do for a normal pair of socks. So if I could make them again, probably what I would do is, I'd just do my regular 15 rounds and then cut the yarn and join the patterned part. But then again, it's kind of defeating the purpose of having self-patterning yarn in the first place, I think. So once you have worked the cuff, which looks quite nice folded over, I must admit. They'd be nice and cosy for winter, wouldn't they? Once you've knit the cuff, you get into the pattern. It's just plain knitting all the way, and you keep on doing that until you get to the next dark blue section in the yarn, which means that it's time to start the heel. I've done a Fish Lips Kiss heel for this one. So I've had a bit of a change with my sock heels. I did go through a phase of preferring a shadow wrap heel. I've actually gone back to a Fish Lips Kiss heel now. Mostly I'll do a heel flap and gusset because I find that that fits me better. I think you get a bit more room with a heel flap and gusset, don't you? On the top of the foot, but sometimes just for ease, and particularly if you've got like a self-striping yarn or something, I do prefer to do a short row heel. So yes, I tried a Fish Lips Kiss heel again, thought that I probably preferred it. So I've gone back to working those, and then once you've done that, you do have to cut the yarn after you've done that and rejoin, and then you just knit the foot. The only thing with these socks is I am a UK size 5. That's a 38 in European sizes. I'm not sure what it is in American sizes. Sorry about that, but I would say that, you know, I've got a small to average I suppose, size feet, and at the point that I was ready to start the toe, that happened at exactly the same point as that I reached the next dark blue section on the yarn. So what that means is, if you've got bigger feet than me, then you're going to run out of pattern earlier, and that means that you're going to instead have to increase the toe and potentially end up with a toe that starts here on the foot. Does that make sense? So that worked out fine for me, but if you've got bigger feet than me, yeah, you're gonna end up with a massive toe, which I'm not sure I would like. You know, if that happened to me, I don't think that would look as good. I would much rather they put in more of the pattern and less of the toe. I don't really understand why they don't do that anywhere. And then once you've finished sock number 1, all you do is pull on the yarn until you get to a section of yellow, and that means that you're at the start of the next sock, and then you just cast on and do sock number 2. So I will pop the details in the description box down below of the colourway that I've used for these. They're really nice. I've not actually worn them. They're very wintry, I think. They've got a very wintry feel to them. They feel very woolly. They feel like they're going to be very hard wearing and good for winter to wear with boots and things. So yeah, they've gone away for now, but yeah, it was a nice experience, especially when you was on just the self-patterning part. It was really nice just to keep on knitting and yeah, see that all working up. The next pair of socks that I have are a pair of Scrappy Socks. I'm just going to pop them on the sock blockers to show you now. So at Christmas time last year, I did an advent swap with my lovely friend Nicola, and we sent each other some scrap yarn, and I decided to make a pair of socks with mine. And I'm really, really happy with these. I really like them. This is how they look. Aren't they nice? I'm really pleased with these. I did 12 rounds for each colour, so even that's including the cup. So I've done a 2x2 ribbing again, just a regular ribbing, 12 rounds, and then I went straight into the colours. And as you can see, I didn't do the matching, and the other thing that I did actually was once I'd made sock number 1, which one was sock number 1? This possibly is sock number 1, I may be wrong, but after I'd completed this one, I popped it away and then started this one so that this one didn't influence my choices in the yarn, so it was completely random. And in order to join the colours, I used a clasped weft join, which is my favourite way of joining colours. I've actually got a tutorial on how to do that. It's really good. I think it looks really neat. This is the colour. Which one's the colour changing side? Well, that just goes to show, doesn't it, how good it is, that I can't fathom out which side I've changed colour on, where you can see the join. It's really easy, really neat, and you weave in the ends as you knit it. So yeah, there's no ends to weave in either. So that is always a bonus. And again, I've done a fish lips kiss heel with these, but yeah, I really like these. Really, really nice. And they knit up so fast. They were so quick to knit, because I just wanted to add the next stripe to see how they were going to look. And I think they look really good. So that's finished pair of socks number 2. The third pair, and I just again need to pop them on the sock blockers. I'll try to do it quietly. The third pair are a little bit different because they are a patterned pair. And these are the Wych Elm Socks, which is a pattern that's been on my list for ages by Potter and Bloom. Emma, the designer, no longer designs. She's retired from knitwear designing now, but the last time I checked, all of her patterns were still available to purchase on Ravelry, and it's a really lovely pattern. So the yarn that I've used for these is called Summer Fae, and it was just a single skein of yarn that I got from Beehive Yarns in, I think it was in her summer update last year, and it had been sitting on the shelf, waiting for the right project. And one weekend we went fishing, bizarrely. It's not something that, you know, I frequently do. Isla broached the subject. She wanted to go fishing. I don't know why. Luke bought her a little pink fishing rod and off we went. And I didn't enjoy the actual fishing part, but the part where I got to sit and relax and knit all afternoon was quite enjoyable. So I took a project with me. I took that skein of wool with me, to start a new project, and these are the socks. Obviously I didn't finish them all on that day. So this main colour that you can see here is the Summer Fae colour, and I'll just bring that a little bit closer. So it's this really pretty speckled yarn. In fact, I do have some slight regrets with the yarn and the pattern choice, but I'll talk about those in a moment. I'll just talk you through the pattern. So I chose my own mini, that was just from Stash, that I thought went well with the yarn. I do think that looks really good. And I did a different ribbing to what was called for in the pattern as well. I'm not sure what the pattern called for, but I did a 1x1 twisted rib. I did that for 15 rounds, and yeah, and then you start working the pattern. And I really, really enjoyed working this, because even though it was a patterned sock, I could work it without having to keep any notes, any tallies, anything like that. It's really intuitive. It was easy to tell just by glancing at your work, what part you were up to, if that makes sense. Whereas normally with some patterns, I have to, have a piece of paper with me to mark where I am and which round I'm onto and things like that. Didn't have to do that with these. It was really nice and intuitive. So that made for a really enjoyable knit. I've done a heel flap and gusset with these, just a standard one. And then just worked the foot and a regular toe. The only slight regrets I have is that I'm thinking the yarn is just slightly too speckled for this pattern. Let me show you the bottom of the foot so you can see how the yarn looks knit plain. I actually think these might have looked better just as a plain vanilla sock, and I'm tempted actually to start another pair of these at some point, but in a plain yarn. I think the idea behind the pattern is that this here, you can see these like little lines across. The idea with the pattern is that these are meant to pick up the speckles and things like that, but I think this yarn is just too speckly for that, and I'm wondering actually how it would look, if it would look better if it was knit just using a plain yarn or a tonal yarn. So I might possibly make another pair of these. Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it, knitting patterned socks with hand-dyed yarn sometimes. It can be a little bit hit and miss, but overall I'm really pleased with these. And Beth recently dyed up another batch of this Summer Fae yarn, which is absolutely beautiful. I'm not sure if she's still got some of that available, but again, I'll pop all of the details down in the description box below. Okay, so that's all of my finished objects, but I do have some works in progress, quite a lot of works in progress. Some of them you'll have seen before, some of them are new since the last time that we chatted. So I think I'll chat about the ones that you'll already have seen in the last episode. So the first one is my advent blanket, which is still in progress, but when I hold it up, I hope you'll agree that I have made quite significant progress on this since the last time we chatted. Let me move back to show you how it's looking. I am now 16 colours in, and you can just see on the bottom, where is it? Oh, it's on this side. You can just see on the bottom here, this is really awkward. You can just see that I've just started adding colour number 17. So I am making this using my advent calendar that I got from Beth at Beehive Yarns last Christmas, hence why I'm calling it the advent blanket. I did kind of come up with some different name possibilities the last time. I'm not sure, I've still just been calling it the advent blanket, so we'll see. But each one of these colour blocks is made up of 9 mini solid granny squares, and then I've worked around those using some Cascade Heritage, just in the colour Snow, which is this lovely off-white colour. In some lights it is definitely more cream than white. There is a definite kind of yellow undertone to it, which I'm not thrilled about, but in other lights it looks really nice. There have been a lot of ends, lots and lots of ends with this project. It has definitely been a labour of love. I've got a few more to sew in here, but I basically have had to start being a lot more disciplined with it, and every time I've added one block of colour, I've tried to go back and sew in all the ends, and mostly I've been keeping up with that. The reason why I think this works so well as an advent blanket is because each one of these individual squares uses just under 1 gram, or just round about 1 gram of yarn. And obviously in an advent calendar, you either get 10 grams or 20 gram balls of yarn or skeins of yarn. I got a 4-ply yarn advent calendar, and I weighed this block of 9 after I'd done it, and it weighed 9 grams. So that means that potentially, if you had a 20 gram advent calendar, you could do 2 coloured blocks, which was my original aim. If you are a member of my Patreon and you've seen all of my update videos, you'll know that I've been going back and forth. I've been quite indecisive about whether I was in fact going to do that, and I have come to a decision now, and well, until I change my mind again. but I have come to a decision at the moment, which is I'm just going to do one block of each colour, just purely because of the amount of work that's involved. It does mean that it's going to be a little bit smaller than I would have liked, but it's just so much work, and so I've still got 8 more colours to add. So it will be, you know, it'll be a good lap blanket, but not like a huge throw-sized blanket, but I'm okay with that. These are the colours that I've got left. I'm keeping them in this little basket that I pinched from Isla. You can see them all in there. And I'm not really doing them in any particular order. I'm just working one block and kind of laying it out and having a look, and then deciding on that basis what colour to work next. So I've not planned it out in advance or anything, which colours I'm going to do where. But so far, I think it's looking really good. And if you want to know how I've done that, I do have a tutorial on how to make the mini granny squares and how to join them as you go as well. So if you have a look, each one, you can see it's got this really nice kind of spiral effect down the middle, and that is created by the joining as you go. I think if I'd made them all individually and then had to sew them or crochet them together, I think it would just never happen. Oh, and I've been using a 3.5mm hook to make that as well. Okay, so that is a little update on my advent blanket. I really do want to get that finished as soon as I can, just so that it frees me up to work on some other projects. And I have set myself the aim of trying to get 4 more colours added by the next time I come and do an update, which will hopefully be in about a month's time, but definitely by the time I do my next monthly Patreon video, I would like to have 4 more colours added. I also have another blanket on the go, and this one is a scrap yarn blanket. And for this one, I'm mostly using the advent yarn that I had left over from my Scrappy Socks from my friend Nicola, and I've added a few kind of oddballs and odds and ends of scraps that I had as well. And I really missed having a moss stitch blanket. If you've seen some of my previous episodes, you'll have seen my corner to corner moss stitch blanket that I made. I think I finished that early this year, and I think moss stitch is brilliant for hand-dyed yarn. It just picks up all of the speckles. So I started another one, but I didn't want to do a corner to corner one this time. I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I'm doing a moss stitch square, and it's quite small, but this is actually a huge amount of work, and it never looks as good on camera as it does in real life. I'll bring it closer so you can see all of the different colours. I'm going to have to stand up, my camera's really far away. You can see all of the different speckles, and I'll attempt to show you what yarn I've got left. That is in my scrap yarn bowl here, and I've definitely made a significant impact on the yarn that's in that bowl. That is looking a lot less full since I started. So I also have a tutorial for this, which I'll pop on screen or in the description box below so that you can take a look at that. But yes, it's basically moss stitch worked in a square. I've been doing 1 round for each colour. Again, I'm using a 3.5mm hook, 4-ply yarn. You could make this with any yarn really, just adjust your hook size. The moss stitch can be quite tight, so I always prefer to go up a hook size just to give it a bit more drape, and I've been turning it over after each round as well and working on the opposite side, and that keeps it looking nice and square. So I've been working, as I say, one entire round just in one colour, which has worked really well so far. Now that it's getting a bit bigger, obviously I'm running out of scraps and they're not always long enough to go the full way around. So I'm having to kind of do two or more colours in one round. I actually spent quite a lot of time working on this at the weekend and it was really frustrating because I think I added about 5 or 6 rounds, realised I'd made a mistake and then just had to frog the full thing that I'd done. So it was just, I had nothing to show for my time. I was really cross with myself. But basically what I'd done, because I was starting to add more than one colour in a round, I'd got mixed up with where the beginning and end of the round was, and I'd started working it in a continuous spiral, and I don't want to do that. I want each round to have, you know, a particular beginning and end. I can't think of the right word, but you know what I mean anyway. So that's my moss stitch blanket, and it feels really nice to have another scrap yarn blanket on the go. I'm going to keep going until all of the scrap yarn that I've got at the moment has been used up, and then I won't be calling it a finish. I think that will just sit to the side for a while until I get more yarn scraps. And the best way I think of getting yarn scraps, or for me anyway, is to knit socks, because I always have leftover sock yarn. And in fact at the moment, this brings me on to my next project quite nicely actually. I'm trying to use up what sock yarn I've got in stash. I've got quite a lot of leftovers, but I've also got some full skeins that I've had for a while, and I've decided just to start making some plain vanilla socks to get those used up. So I have a half finished object to show you, and it's another pair of socks, but I'm going to show you the yarn first. So this yarn was very kindly gifted to me last year, I believe, from Mandis Makings, and I'll pop the details in the description box below. But I believe this is called Fabric Scissors, this yarn, and it did come in a sock set. I have been a bit naughty and used the mini for another project. It just went well with the colours that were in another project. So I had to have a bit of a dig through stash, and I found this green mini, which I think goes really, really nicely. And as you know, I'm not a huge fan of green, as I say, as I'm wearing a green top, but I suppose what I mean is I'm a bit more particular about shades of green. There are certain shades that I really don't like, but I think this looks really nice. So let me pop the sock on the sock bucket, because I have finished sock number 1. I haven't started sock number 2 yet, but this is how it looks. I think it looks lovely. See, this is what I mean about just knitting a plain vanilla sock. I do think sometimes it's, excuse me, I do think it's the best way sometimes of showing off hand-dyed yarn, because you get to see all of the lovely speckles and the things. Like, how pretty does that look? So I tried something new for this sock. I normally do a 2x2 ribbing, or I'll do a 1x1 twisted rib, but I've never actually done a 2x2 twisted rib, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why I've never done that, but I decided to give it a go with this pair of socks, and I really, really like it. I think this is my new favourite ribbing. Just look how neat it looks. It's so neat. I did get a bit lazy with this one, and I did only do 12 rounds instead of my usual 15, but I think it looks okay. Matches my top, doesn't it, quite well. So I did a regular heel flap and gusset, and obviously, as you can see, I just kept the contrast colours for the cuff and the toe, which is one of my preferred ways to do it. I only like to do 2 of the 3. Very rarely do I do all three in a contrast colour, but that was really nice. And considering it's a pair of vanilla socks, which sometimes I find they can be a little bit boring. Considering that, they actually flew off the needles. I think I just got into a good flow with them, and they're really good projects to have for TV knitting, aren't they? Just a pair of plain vanilla socks. So that's another half finished object, and I do have, I'm sorry if you're all socked out at the moment, I've got 2 more pairs of socks to show you. I'll do that now, I think. Let's go through my next pairs. One of them is actually going to be frogged. Let me just pop this one away. I started another pair of socks. I was looking for a pattern that had a simple texture just to give it a little bit of interest, but I didn't want something that was too complicated. I was gifted some yarn from Ash's Yarn Crafts. It's this really beautiful yarn. It's called Pretty in Pink, and it's just kind of got all these lovely tonal shades of lilacs and pinks through it. It's absolutely beautiful. So I didn't want a pattern that was too complicated, and I came across a pattern that was in my pattern library that I'd bought previously, called the Daily Socks by Summer Fae, and I'd actually cast on a pair of these previously and frogged them, and I couldn't remember why I'd frogged them. And I've got more of an idea now. They've not been plain sailing, these socks. Let me show them to you, and then we can have a chat. So the Daily Socks the pattern is a really simple textured pattern that's created by working slip stitches. The only problem is, therein lies the problem. Because it's worked with slip stitches, obviously that can make the sock a lot tighter. The pattern recommends using 2.75mm needles, which is huge for a pair of socks, I think. I normally use 2.25mm needles. So I cast those on, and they just looked a mess. The tension was all over. They were holy. Yeah, I didn't like how they were working up at all. So I decided to size back down to a 2.5mm needle, so kind of in the middle. The only needles I could find were small circulars, which I did used to use originally when I very first started knitting socks. So I cast on, it all went okay. I had to knit continental style, which I can do, but I prefer to knit English style. But it was okay, I had to knit continental because they just felt like Barbie needles. They were really awkward to use. And I did the cuff, all of the leg, all went okay. And then I got to the heel, and I decided to do a fish lips kiss heel, but that was more for practical reasons. So if you've knit with small circulars before, you'll know that in order to work the heel for a sock, you have to use other needles. You'll need DPNs or something, because it's not physically possible to work the heel flap and gusset and everything just on the small circulars. And I didn't want to faff about, so I decided to do a fish lips kiss heel, and it was really awkward. It hurt my hands to do it, and I don't like how it looks anyway. So I'm going to show you a close-up, and you'll probably think it looks absolutely fine, but I'm just not happy with it. To me, the stitches just look loose and sloppy and not neat, and I think you can tell most of all on the ribbing. It just looks awful. It just looks a mess. And that's because I've used 2.5mm needles. After I'd worked the heel, I decided, you know, I can't get on with these small circulars. I had a good look through all of my knitting needles and things, and I found a pair of Addy needles. The cable is absolutely enormous on them. It's like 120 centimetres. I don't know what I bought them for, but it is really... I've knit a couple of rounds and it's been really driving me mad because it just curls and gets in the way, and I don't like the needles either. I normally use high sharps, and these, yeah, they're very blunt at the ends. I'm not a fan. So I knit a couple of rounds on them, really didn't have a good experience, and then I realised as well, now that I'm onto the foot, obviously the pattern is only on the top part. On the sole, it's just plain knitting now, and I didn't like the fact that it was on the bigger needles because it meant that it was going to look sloppy and things. And yeah, I'm going to frog them. I'm just going to frog them and make something else. Still socks, but make another pattern, I think. I might even just do plain ones. The other thing is I'm thinking they'll look a lot better with some kind of contrast in there. Maybe not even a full cuff, but maybe some, you know, maybe just a couple of rounds, or even just a cast on at the beginning, just to kind of make the yarn pop a little bit more. So I am going to have a look through stash, and see what I've got and see if I've got a better mini, and then I'm going to frog them. But I wanted to show you them anyway, so I guess I know now why I frogged them last time I made them. Yeah, I just don't get on with the pattern. It's a lovely pattern. I'm sure some people, you know, have made very nice socks with it. It's just not for me. This yarn is absolutely beautiful though, and I do have a discount code as well for you, which is good, isn't it? To get 10% off, all you need to do is use the code SOCKS at checkout, and I'll again pop all the details of that in the description box below. Okay, next pair of socks is a patterned pair. This is a sock pattern that I've actually knit before, a very long time ago. I've shown them on the podcast before previously. I absolutely loved the pattern. I was not a fan of the yarn. I used to have a thing about blue. Blue used to be my favourite colour. Yeah, and just my tastes have just changed, and now I'm much more into pinks, and I made that pair of socks in blue yarn. I'll pop a picture on so that you can see it, but yeah, I just didn't like them, and it wasn't the pattern, because the pattern's absolutely beautiful. It is a ribbed pattern, so I'm going to show you it briefly, and then I'm going to pop this on the sock blockers. I'm only halfway through, so that you can see it better, because they are going to need a blocking. So this is another stash busting project. I've not even told you the pattern, have I? These are the open socks, which is another pattern by Emma at Potter and Bloom, and it's such a pretty pattern. It's beautiful, look at that. I have made them a little bit shorter than the pattern calls for, just because I'm using stash yarn and I'm not sure that I'm going to have enough. But this is Cascade Heritage in the colour Pale Peach. This was left over from my Patisserie shawl, and I think it's looking absolutely beautiful. I've followed the pattern just as it's written, apart from obviously I've done less repeats. So it's a 1x1 twisted rib. I've done 7 repeats of the pattern. The heel flap is this really pretty version with the garter stitch edging there, which I really like. And yeah, and I'm just continuing with the pattern. These are actually going to be for Sophie. She has asked me if I'll make her some more socks because she's grown out of all of her old ones. And I've got hundreds of pairs of socks. I don't need any more really, so I'm more than happy to make those for her. So again, this is an absolutely beautiful pattern, and it's really easy. Just like the Wych Elm Socks, it's really intuitive, very easy to pick up and put down, and when you come back to it you can see exactly which row you're up to. It's worked all over worked over a 4-row repeat, and each repeat as well makes one of these twisted ribs, which means that it's dead easy to count how many repeats you've done as well. So really easy to keep track of, really recommend that pattern. Okay, I've got 3 more projects that I want to talk to you about. Let's talk about an old one. So, I maybe should have talked about this one a bit earlier. I have been still working away on my garter stitch shawl, which I have given the working name of Seixal, okay? It's spelled differently, and I went on holiday to Madeira in May, and there's a beautiful beach there called Seixal, that's how it's pronounced, and yeah, the colours that I'm using just reminded me of all the lovely beachy colours and things, so I decided I'm giving it the working name of Seixal, but I may change that. I can't remember how far I was with this actually last time I spoke, but hopefully when I hold it up you'll agree that it is significantly bigger. In fact, I think I'm going to have to scoot around very awkwardly, but this is how it's looking. That looks a mess. Let me get this. I'm all taffled with the yarn. It's because I've got one ball of yarn at one end and another ball of yarn at the other. So here it is. Sometimes I'm not sure about this. I did a video actually for my patrons yesterday, and I held it up and I was like, I'm really not sure about this last colour. But actually now that I'm looking at it today, I'm quite liking it. I change my mind all the time. So this is such an easy pattern. It's basically just garter stitch, you're increasing every other row on one side, and there's an I-cord edge. It's really simple, and I'm striping drop snod, which is I think is in off-white, with some mini skeins that I had, and I think all of the minis mostly were from the yarn club that I got from Beehive Yarns last year. So this is the colour that I'm currently on, but I'm going to show you it from the beginning if I can. Okay, so we start off here, and then that fades down like this, and then we've started adding this kind of lovely creamy browns and oranges, and now we've just reached this darker brown, and it's at this point that I've kind of got a bit unsure about it, because I think this middle section just faded so well together that this last colour just kind of jars a little bit. So I reached this last colour, and then I wasn't sure, and I popped it down because I'm not sure, to be honest, whether to just frog those rows back and say that it's done or whether I should continue. Let me show you the other colours that I've got left to add. So I've still got 3 colours to go. I can never remember the order. So here is the next colour that I'm adding now, and then after that I've got these 3 colours. This is very difficult to hold up. These 3 colours here, so it goes into like darker colours and then fades back into a blue colour. So what do you think? Do you think I should continue with it, or do you think I should say that it's done? I think what I need to do, because it's so big and because my yarn's so tangled up, I think I need to take a picture of it, just a good full-size picture, and I need to pop a picture on so that you can see it better. But yeah, let me know what you think. This, I'm probably going to release this as a pattern once it's done. I'm not sure whether it will be free or as a paid for pattern. It's a really, like I say, it's dead easy, great for beginners. You can stripe the yarn, you can do all one colour. yeah, you know, you can be, there's a really good potential to be creative with it. If you are a member of my Patreon, that pattern is actually already available to you on there if you're a member of my brioche tier. Because, yeah, because my patrons get nice little perks like that. Even though the pattern's still in draft form, because it's such a simple pattern, I've put it on already. You get kind of early access to the draft. But that's my Seixal and my garter stitch shawl. Yeah, I'm still not entirely sure what to do with that. Okay, we are now starting to head into autumn and winter, although it doesn't really feel like it. We've had really nice weather here. It's felt really crisp and fresh in the morning, but then by the time the afternoon rolls around, it's been really warm and sunny. I picked Tyler up from school yesterday and I just wore this this t-shirt. This is my Cumulus tee, by the way. I didn't mention what I was wearing. I've not worn it in a while. I got it back out and I've remembered how much I like it. Although I do wish that I'd made it just a little bit longer. Thinking I might actually make another one of these, but in a different colour. I'm thinking it'll look really good in kind of like a rusty colour. Be really nice, but yeah, this is a really good one to wear when it is that kind of in-between weather. Yeah, when it's not hot but not cold either. But as we're heading into autumn, I've been thinking of winter knits and projects that I want to make for winter ahead. And I've cast on a new sweater. And I've not got very far with it, but this one has been on my list for a long time. This is probably one of the most advanced patterns that I've ever made. So yeah, but it's going well so far. I'm gonna hold it up to show you. This is the Ingrid Sweater by PetiteKnit, and this is the back. Sorry, my needles are clacking. So it starts off with this double moss stitch, and then we go into this kind of faux ribbing, which I was really worried about, but actually this part was really quite simple. Yeah, I really like how that looks. And then I'm just on the ribbing part, and then I've just got one more pattern repeat to do with this ribbing. And then I believe I have to put this full section on hold and then pick up, I think it's the shoulders or the front panels to work the front, and then we go all the way around and join it. And I have made a sweater like that before. I made a Stockholm sweater last year, and it is complicated, but I have done it before, so I'm hoping that I'll be okay with that. I am going to put in a lifeline just in case, because I'm using drops yarn. So I've got some drops alpaca silk, and this is colour number 2. Doesn't say the shade name, but yeah, shade number 2. And I'm holding that double with drops Lima, and this one is colour 9025. And as gorgeous as this is, it is an absolute nightmare to frog. I made a really small mistake when I very first started. I think I just miscounted a couple of stitches, and I had to just tink back a couple of rows, and it was a nightmare. It gets really stuck. So I wouldn't want to have to frog back like a significant amount or anything like that. I am definitely going to be putting a landline in, and I will definitely be having to work on that when the house is empty and I've got no one bothering me, because I do not want to make a mistake. But yeah, I cast that on a while ago. I worked on it quite a lot and then got distracted by other things, but I have picked it up recently, so I'm hoping to make some good progress on that. So next time we chat, hopefully I'll have some good progress on that to show you. Okay, my throat is starting to get a bit dry now. I've been talking for 50 minutes. I did think about doing this in 2 episodes, but decided not to. I have one more project to show you. This is something that I've started recently. I was very, very lucky over the summer to receive a subscription from Row 1 Yarn, which is this fantastic subscription box that you can get in America, and each month features a different yarn dyer. And sorry, I just had to pause because Luke's come home. How dare he come home to his own house? I'm just arranging all of my granny squares. So again, this is a really good subscription box in America that features a different yarn dyer each month, and each month you'll receive 10 mini skeins featuring a range of colours from that yarn dyer. Isn't that a good idea? Somebody needs to do that in the UK, I think. I would definitely be up for that. So I've received 3 months worth. I'm just going to show you the most recent one. They're just adorable. It comes so beautifully packaged and everything. This one is from Poppy and Spruce Fibres. I'm just going to get all of them together. And originally I was going to add these to another one of my scrap yarn blankets, which is the mini granny square one. Not my advent one, the one where it's just all random colours. But then it's almost like the yarn's too nice to use in that. I want to use them in their own project. So I've started some different mini granny squares. I started making these, look. Aren't they adorable? Very small. So I'm just doing a simple 2 round traditional granny. I've sewn all the ends in as well, aren't I good? And then I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to go with it. Obviously I'm going to join them and they're going to be a blanket. I'm not sure whether to do a continuous join as you go with like just a plain contrast colour and join them all together, or whether to sew them or crochet them together. Crochet them together more likely, I think. So I might do a join as you go, but I'm basically going to make lots of little mini squares using each month, but then mix them all together. I think it's going to look really good. So I've started that. I actually have already filmed a tutorial that's going up on YouTube this Friday on how to do those minis, and then I'll be doing another tutorial on how to do the continuous join as you go with them as well. I'm going to just use like a sample of them to film that. So yeah, I really need to get my advent blanket finished before I concentrate on that properly, but they look adorable. I think they're so nice. Yeah, I think my tutorial's going up this Friday, and then I'll be popping this podcast up at the weekend, so that will already be up. So I'll pop a link up here or down there to the tutorial, so you can check that out if you want to. Whew, that's it. That's all of my projects that all of the ones that I've chosen to speak to you about, all talked about. And I've had to pause and restart filming, so I have no idea how long I've been talking for now, but probably about an hour. So I think I'm going to wrap it up. So I'm going to chat really briefly about Patreon, very, very briefly, but obviously if you're not interested in that, that's fine. Thank you for watching, take care, and I'll see you again next time. If you are interested in Patreon, very, very quickly, I've got 2 tiers. I'm not going to tell you the pricing because it changes depending where you are in the world, and also if you look at it on the app with Apple actually adds a fee onto the pricing, so it looks different on there as well. It's cheaper if you sign up on the internet, just on the normal website desktop. But I have 2 tiers. The first tier is my knit tier. All of my members of the knit tier get early access to all of my YouTube videos. So every time I add a new YouTube video, that goes up onto Patreon a few days before. You get early access, it's ad-free, there's no adverts over there on Patreon, and even once it's published on YouTube, it remains on Patreon ad-free as well. So the first tier is basically just early ad-free access. Tier number 2, which is my brioche tier, gets exclusive content. So you get all of the YouTube videos early access ad-free as well. you get 2 exclusive videos a month. Sometimes they're like vlog style videos, other times, well mostly they're just kind of like this podcast style videos where you'll get to see things that I don't necessarily talk about on my main channel, things that don't necessarily go on Instagram, things like that. I also do vlogs and things that go up on there, and occasionally I will do more than 2 videos. Sometimes you'll get an extra bonus one as well. But that is basically it. I did put on written instructions and things, so occasionally you'll get bonus content, like the pattern for my garter stitch shawl is already on there now. I'm having to have some second thoughts about that, because I have had a few people who have signed up, downloaded everything and then cancelled, which you know is quite cheeky and obviously not good, and I don't want people to be doing that. So going ahead, what I might do, I might do like a discount code or something like that. But yeah, there's a few things up there, downloadables, but primarily if you're on the brioche tier, it's the exclusive videos that you'll be getting. And that's it. So I am gonna go, I'm gonna wrap up. I've got, tons of housework to do, normal work to do and all sorts, and yeah, I need to get this edited and up. So thank you so much for watching, and I will be back chatting again soon, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the month. Take care everyone, bye.